If you can't laugh and laugh at yourself at least 3 or 4 times a day, why are you in this business? Because you better learn how to laugh. You better have to learn to laugh at yourself sometimes too. Because I'll be sitting there going, Craig, you dumbass. You know, how did you possibly do that or think of that? You know, so anyway. Well, you know, what I'm doing is presently is I do an awful lot of volunteer work on behalf of veterans. I'm a veteran advocate. I focus on homeless veterans, but I don't turn back anyone or wouldn't turn back anyone in terms of need. And while that focuses on veterans, you know, I will help anyone I possibly can in the community, especially the homeless. But it's really interesting. The way it started was I was an infantry platoon leader in Vietnam with the 82nd Airborne, and you know, we had some hard assignments in infantry, and being in combat is it's tough. And you know, getting shot at and shooting back, and losing people you care about and love, or they get hit, they get wounded, some get killed, and you're just trying to stay alive, and you're trying to keep your men alive, and they in turn have got you covered, and they're trying to keep you alive as you carry out your mission. And as I was telling you earlier, I didn't realize it was OJT, on-the-job training, because I consider those veterans my brothers and sisters that whether they live the same experiences as me, they've served their nation, they've served their country, they are due respect and honor, and if they've fallen on hard times in any form or fashion, if I can help them out, you know, I'm going to be there. And it's interesting because I think the lessons were actually learned in Vietnam. In the platoon, at the end of the platoon, Charlie Sheen's being evac'd on a helicopter, and he starts talking about, you know, what do we get out of this, or what do we learn from this? And I can't remember his exact dialogue, but it was basically, can we turn all these bad things into something good? And I think we can, because what it gave to me was this sense of loyalty, of commitment to helping others, of commitment to hopefully saving some lives as necessary, because I saw too many lives that we couldn't save. If I can reach out and influence and help people out and get others to start doing that as well. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about working in my community. And this is where I was born and raised. I left in '68 when I went in the military. And now that I'm back in my community full time, one of my greatest, best feelings is when I see the community coming together. Not my work, but the community coming together, both as individuals and as one, to help this population that I know from a professional life of experience and volunteers that could use and need this help and deserve our help. So it's been a lifelong commitment, and I had no idea in 1969 when I walked through the rice paddies and the jungles that it would become my life's work of trying to help veterans and their families. One of the things that I've been doing for the veterans themselves is I'm very much involved with trying, especially the homeless veterans, getting them out of under the bridges, out of the woods, etc., get them into housing and treatment. They all are going to probably need, I know they're all going to need some type of medical treatment, but also the mental health, the substance abuse, etc., the other issues they deal with. So I've been more involved in getting them into housing and getting them into treatment primarily. Beyond that, for whatever reason, and I would like to think I didn't seek it out, but for whatever reason, I've become a kind of a spokesperson in my community for helping veterans in lots of different issues, specifically homeless, but others what I call veterans in need. And so I probably make 50 to 70, maybe more speeches a year to various civic groups, different agencies, etc., trying to, quote, spread the word about what the needs of in our local community that our veterans need. And what I also, and I'm really encouraged about the networking that I've done with people, there are local resources that can be used. We don't have to always look to the state or the federal level. Should we? We should. The state and federals have to be in on this. But there's any untold numbers of local resources that can be managed better and used for some of these needs. And quite frankly, and I worked in a government bureaucracy, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, for any number of years, but quite frankly, sometimes the local solution is a lot faster and a lot easier than trying to go through a bureaucracy of sorts. And you get more direct needs taken care of by that individual veteran rather than waiting for 6 months for it to wind its way through the system. So one of the things that I've been encouraged about is the local community coming together in support of these things. Every year we have a stand down for veterans, for homeless veterans, veterans at risk of becoming homeless, and veterans in need. It's been going on, we've had our third year. It went from seeing 228, I think it was, veterans and their families the first year, to we had over 450 this year, and it went from 28 local agencies to 55 local agencies this year giving those services. So it's been a wonderful a wonderful thing to watch this come together, to get community involved in giving local solutions where possible to local problems and needs. There's several different ways, several different venues or avenues, I should say, that they can use. Two or three that come immediately to mind. Here in Spartanburg, we have a local Spartanburg VA outpatient clinic. It's called for veterans. Sometimes they need volunteers at those clinics, and you can always get in touch with what they call volunteer services, and they will let you know whether or not and what they can use in terms of volunteers at those clinics. That's one. The second thing is veteran service organizations, American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans, and all the different VSOs, the major VSOs. They also have certain needs that people can get involved with them. They can join their auxiliary and work with the veterans on their different needs and things like that. For instance, there's a local veteran service organization I know right now that's beginning to feed the homeless, including homeless veterans on the streets, and they can always use volunteers to help do that. Other venues or avenues are your local United Way. They have all kind of contacts in which you can probably find some hours and some things to do. There are churches now starting to focus on veterans' needs. There's one church here in Spartanburg specifically that's opened up a transitional house for homeless veterans. People need to volunteer there. You can do that too. While the wars are different, there's no doubt about it, and while the intensity is different based on where you were, what you were fighting and doing like that, the underlying emotional and mental health issues remain the same. When you look at the symptomology of people that have been in war and the traumas, it goes far back as Shakespeare's writings outline it with King Richard. It actually goes back to the Bible in certain instances there. But for instance, people don't know this, but in the Roman conquerors and armies, when they came back from their 10-year wars or whatever, they weren't allowed inside the gates of Rome. Rome did not allow Roman soldiers back inside. They had to do encampments outside the gates of Rome and outside the walls of Rome and come in a little bit at a time, because they had already seen what could be happening with some of these soldiers, especially. Imagine being away for 10 years and being in combat so much and stuff like that. I can't imagine that. But the idea is that this has been historically recorded for centuries on end, and I don't want us to ever to be in any other war, but these issues will remain there as long as we have war, as long as we have trauma-induced incidences, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, sexual assault, you name it. Those kind of issues and those kind of events will continue to be issues that people need to be in therapy about and meet and conquer. Of course, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs hopes to hire over 5,000 mental health workers in the next 5 years. The fastest track to get into, quite frankly, to be a therapist with veterans is the MSW. And I'm not advertising anybody. I'm not a professor in any one of those schools or something like that. But the fastest track is to get a bachelor's degree and then jump on a 2-year MSW degree. Because MSWs are licensed, you have to be licensed, pass the exams and everything to work for the VA anyway. But they are licensed to provide therapy, and the VA is hiring MSWs like you wouldn't believe. Now, of course, PhDs are welcome in other kind of advanced nurse practitioners or nurses with a psychiatric background. They're all very physician's assistants with a psych background, etc. They're all can be involved in that, but that's for the VA. The VA is beginning to contract out to other civilian agencies in the local communities. They're going to start contracting out these services for veterans because the veterans can't get to these hospitals sometimes, or the appointment list is so long. That's going to happen down the road, I can tell you, in the next couple of 3 years. So people going to school, getting their bachelor's, and then moving into an advanced master's degree of some sort, is a fast track to moving into that. In some cases, the VA is going to hire people who may not even have the bachelor's, but have been through certified, it's called CAC, Certified Abuse Counselors. They become, certified abuse counselor. So they're working with the people who are alcoholic or drug addicted or stuff like that. And there's a market for those both within the VA and the federal government, within state and local entities. So there's a fast track for you if you want to do it. That's a fantastic question. Can you work with veterans if you weren't a veteran? By all means. I used to be over approximately, when I worked for a living, one of my jobs, I was over about 250 clinicians scattered across 7 southeastern states. I would say out of those 250, there was at least a third of those that were not veterans doing everyday individual or group therapy with veterans. In this case, it was of the Vietnam era, and then it moved on to other eras later on. They were awesome. They were awesome. I guarantee you, if a veteran, and they'll pick up on this very carefully, if a veteran knows you respect them, if a veteran knows that you won't make a promise that you can't keep, and I used to tell therapists, don't you dare promise something you can't deliver. If they know you respect them and care about them, if they know that you won't make a promise or do anything that you can't deliver on or something like that, and that you have the guts to stand up to them on occasion and say, no, we're not going to go any farther with this, or we're going to draw a line here, you'll be fine. I'm 68 years old, and it's probably past time for the next generation of veterans and non-veterans who are within that generation to take over. It's time for people that have the youth, the enthusiasm, the energy, the know-how, and the desire to start doing what a lot of us have done for an awful long time. I mean, I'm not ready to quit, and I'm still got some energy. But let me repeat, I'm 68 years old, and I don't know how much longer I've got on this earth. And I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but I just want, and I'm seeing that happen in certain cases. I want the next generation, I want to feel comfortable that the next generation is continuing to carry that torch, to continue to carry the flag, as we'd say in the military, to move forward and to be there for these veterans. Because I do know this, if anything, the 40 years experience I've had doing this has taught me, as I've seen, and I used to see World War II, Korean, Vietnam veterans, etc. One thing it's taught me is that this war, which is now the longest war in our nation's history, it will have repercussions for our veterans and their families for the next 100 years. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't mean that to be dramatic or saying, oh, all hope is lost. No, what that means is we have to be prepared and ready to help those veterans through the next 100 years. And that won't be me. So it has to be someone else, someone that's who's 30s, in their 20s, 30s, even 40s now, that are going to pick up that flag and keep on moving forward, saying, I'm there for you, brother or sister. Whenever you need me to be there, I will be there.